The views shared in this episode represent Kelly and Kendra, not our mamas, partners, church, job, or sponsors.
For this episode, we want to offer a disclaimer. If you have been a victim and survived domestic violence, the information in this podcast may be triggering for you. If you are a member of the LGBTQ community who has experienced religious trauma and harm, this episode may also be traumatizing for you. So please govern yourselves accordingly to keep yourself safe. If you decide to listen to this episode, you can fast forward to the section in the show notes where we mention resources, and we will also provide links as well.
Oh, my joint is always on silent. And me and my neurodiversity around sound. Tanika uses the ringer that sounds like a phone. I hate it with a passion. I'm like, why? Like, there's no reason for that. Where are you going that you need that ringer? And we were somewhere, and it rang, and she like dismissed it.
You do know you are just recording on tape.
I don't care. And then 60 seconds later, it rang again. I'm like, so when it rang the first time, and you did not it, you ain't put it on silent. Like, I was getting so. Then we went to
on the phone with her.
Then we went to the jazz concert, and somebody's phone went off. I said, Tanika, did you turn yours off? She said, that wasn't me. I said, I know. But now that I've heard theirs, I better not hear that phone ring. There's no reason. Where are you that you need a ringer? And it's that ringer. It's like
super loud.
Oh, so Tanika knows like my neurodiversity around sound is real bad with her because for some reason Tanika's is always loud for no reason. Like her keyboard is loud, mine is loud too. But her keyboard is loud, her car is loud, everything just be loud. And I be like my anxiety just I'm like, oh my God, please give me patience to survive this.
Sorry. Yeah, I don't know what's up with her. We be on the phone with her, and I be looking at the thing like this. Now, why is just that her car be like?
But I can't talk because my car is because of my CarPlay. Yeah. But I also be chewing in people's ears on the phone, so I can't really talk. Anyway,
my face hurts already.
Mine too. I'm crying.
Like it's the little things. I am very much the Archie Bunker of like Black middle-aged women because I'm just like little stuff just be getting on my nerves. And Tanika don't pay me no attention.
She don't pay nobody. She be like,
she be looking just like that.
I be like Tanika. She
can't stand her ass. Anyway, what we talking about? Anyway, before we get to that, Kelly, what's going on? How are you?
I'm still here, so I'm doing good. Thank you for asking.
And why did you choose today to deconstruct your office?
Because I was in a place of acceptance that I'm always going to be the place people dump papers. And if I want them to find a place and not overwhelm me, then I'm just going to have more sorting space. So.
Wait, who's dumping papers in your office? I'm confused. Your family?
I mean, we have household things, insurance, all the things. So
you gonna have bins? You remember back in the day when you used to go to somebody's office and they'd be like, they were just like, this is the inbox and the outbox. You gonna have bins like in the office back in the day?
No. I'm just gonna be able to sort my office differently.
So what are we talking about today?
I think we're talking about pray the gay away. I didn't mean to trigger you so early in the conversation.
No, it's just funny because a lot of am I about to go there, Denele?
Have at it.
Yes.
Have at it.
But as allies to all communities of all people, I don't even say I'm an LGBTQ ally because like I'm a human ally, but a lot of the issues that Denele and I in particular have with the faith communities that we've been a member of have been because of their treatment of LGBTQ, or as my good sis T.S. Madison says, the Labiquita community. And so it's interesting that you started with that, because a lot of people don't understand that when I'm like, well, that's not your story. So why is that your, you know, your thing? But like, I draw a line in the sand, and I ain't with it.
It's
So,
called projection.
right.
A lot of times it's called projection, right? People talk about what they know.
Or see, this is why I said, should I go there?
I mean, it's true, right? I love the church. No, I wouldn't say love. I really like the church that I was going to before my current church, but we do a lot of talking around things.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as no one asks you to be supportive out loud and you don't put people out to church, that is sufficient, was kind of the energy. And I get it. People worry about their tithes and offering. And if you come out as an inclusive community, will your tithes paying people and people who still believe in tithes, will they continue to contribute? However, you are the pastor of everyone who's a member of your congregation. You are the pastor, according to your calling, of all the people of the world, which means to me that you have to serve all the people of the world with intentionality. So when I was looking around for a church, I was very clear it had to be an exclusively, unapologetically open church, because I didn't want to try to have to figure out if the work that I do is going to be seen as problematic, or the communities that I partner with are not going to be accepted and embraced. So I hear you.
I feel that, because I feel like, as a person who is allied to certain communities, when you're telling me that me doing that work is one thing, but like you love all people and you don't judge people, to me, you're telling me that part of who I am is also not worthy. Right? Like, I have to, like, I can bring the self of me that's all the things that, but as long as I don't talk about, and to your point, Kelly, like, we don't really call the thing a thing. And I think the thing that pissed me off is not so much when they talk about it, but even like, there was a time recently at the church that we are both very long members to, and this is no disrespect to my church family or my family, but there one particular instance recently that pissed me off was by way of introducing a couples retreat that they were about to have. It was introduced with prefaced by saying
it was biblical marriage. I'm about to get up.
But it wasn't even framed in that way. We love all people, and we welcome all people into our church. This was before, like, I'm like, where are we going with this? This is announcements. This ain't even a sermon. This is the announcement. But, we are Bible believing church that we believe that marriage is between a union between man and a woman. With that said, our couples retreat is coming up. So basically what it was saying is, what we're about to say does not apply to everybody in this room. So which 9 times out of 10, what none of them people going to apply to go anyway with y'all? Nobody wants to go to y'all's marriage ministry thing. But anyway, but they preface this marriage ministry event, because they have a very strong marriage ministry event, with, just so before y'all even get any ideas, we love y'all, but y'all can't come to this because this ain't for you. That ain't sit right with me. And it made me investigate a lot of the things that I've been able to dismiss for years, where I'd be like, they're not like, they don't necessarily embrace things, like, they're not going to marry people in a church, but in general, they're not outwardly homophobic. They're loving and they're nice. I tried in my past to like see beyond certain things. And like Kendra in recent years has not been able to do that. But that to me felt even more insidious and more egregious than like just coming out saying something's wrong.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Are you a Black woman in middle management looking to elevate your leadership skills in a safe space? Then listen up, because I have something special just for you. Join a coaching group of like-minded women focusing on emotional intelligence, management skills, and leading in white spaces. In our group coaching sessions, you'll gain leadership skills, tools, and strategies. Plus, you'll gain a powerful network of sisters who understand your journey. No more leaning alone. Ready to take the next step? Visit www.iamkelly to learn more and join a cohort. Let's lead together.
Yeah, yeah. I remember that, but before that, I think it was during the pandemic. It was a sermon, a particular sermon that kind of not kind of, it rubbed me the wrong way. And I sent an email. And to this day, I've never received a response to that email.
What you say? What you say?
So in the sermon, they were, I want to say, praying the gay away, praying for, my brothers and sisters who are of same sex. First of all, your brothers and sisters who have same sex relationships don't have nothing to do with you. Let them people love who they love. You love who you love, right? And so she kept going on and on. And I was just sitting there like, oh, nah, right? So I sent an email just outlining, what happened, my disappointment, and I have not heard a thing. And guess what? That was the last time I regularly watched or went to church. Now, I'll go because Janaea was in the dance ministry, right? She danced. Of course, I'm going to support my baby, right? But my parents be like, when you come to church, I ain't.
My mom don't even ask me no more.
I don't have to go to church to have a relationship with God. I can do other things. I don't have to be there. I ain't seeing you in church. I know. You ain't going to see me. I can't surround myself with that type of environment, right? Even the last time I went, I was sitting there nitpicking I was like, I can't do this.
It ain't worth it, Miss Seeley.
Yeah.
But I wanted to say, I didn't want to interrupt you, Janelle, but I wanted to say, let's remember the context of that sermon. The thing that made it particularly egregious is that they weren't even talking about homosexuality.
Right.
They were talking about people who were sick.
Yes.
They were like, to our people who are homebound, I'm praying for you. The people are dealing with HIV and AIDS. To our people dealing with this disease.
Then they threw that in there.
Yeah, there's people are dealing with like it was like the ills of the world, like sickness
Right.
and other things, and that came up.
Well, it's fascinating to me that we can learn how to be oppressive when we are still trying to get out of oppression. Like that mentality doesn't make sense to me. That you know what it's like to have your civil rights taken away. You know what it's like to be openly discriminated against, and yet you will do it in the name of God as though that makes it okay. And it's not, right? So I'm like, even if I was cool with your theology, LGBTQ people pay taxes. They are members of community, so they shouldn't receive services, right? They shouldn't. A public official whose job is to marry me can like say, no, I'm not going to marry you. Like that's the same mentality that was of every major civil rights movement, right?
Right.
To be fully seen and included in society. No, we're not doing that as Black people.
And I think like Kendra, for the longest time, because it was embedded in me, right? From a child, you go to church, and then when I got to college, that's when I started deconstructing my religion, faith, whatever you want to call it. But as a believer or a follower of God, Christ, you're supposed to love everybody, right? And accept everybody as they are. And then when you go to the pulpit, you're in the pulpit and you start talking about sexual orientation. I just don't understand. Like, I don't understand. And what does that have anything to do? What does somebody's sexual orientation have anything to do with you?
Well, that's why they default to the pray the gay away, right?
Right.
So it's no longer you can't come here. Now it's everyone's welcome, and we gonna heal you,
Right.
right? And it's like, no, I don't need to be healed about the essence of my being, right? Like, if we can move away from bad theology around choice and sin and hell and all these things, and get to the heart of the matter, which is we are humans and we are fully loved for who we are. Like, if we can't have that baseline, what are we doing?
Right.
But can we really talk about why we even started this conversation? Was the clip from Dr. Tima, who bless her and her brother who lost their mother recently, her brother Jamal Bryant. What is particularly salient about her point in her last social media post was, for me, it's not so much that my thing is that theologically people really believe that homosexuality is a sin. That's their theological perspective, and so they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. But
I
so much
guess.
about so much of what people talk about in, like, I'm not saying I agree with it. What I'm saying
I
is,
know.
okay, let's say that that's what the premise is, right?
Right.
So much of what people understand about what it means to be same-sex loving is speculative. Either you know or you don't. And if you know, you know. So we can talk about, what's her name? Jackie Perry. That's a whole nother story.
You really going there.
The Jackie Perrys and the Donnie McClurkins of the world. Another story. We can get to that later.
Well, let me just say, I do not want no Jackie Perry fan in my DM. I don't have time.
But let me get to my point. Let me get to my point. What we understand about it, unless you are closeted or unless you are someone who claims that they've, that so much of what you understand about that sin is speculative.
Right.
But to Dr. Tima's point, we know Negroes and other rows in the church and in society that are molesting people, that have domestic violence issues in their homes. And they come into you and they're talking about it with you
They got third
in
and fourth
counseling. You know, and I ain't heard a peep about it.
Not
I don't need to know that
one
particular
word.
instance, but I ain't heard a drop about it.
Yeah.
So we talking speculative here. Very few people, and I'm sure in very rare incidents, people come to you and talk about their same-sex loving relationship. If anything, it's probably just like, we're going to come to your church.
Right.
Or we came to your church and we didn't feel seen, we didn't feel protected or covered because of this. But other than that, most people are not coming to you talking about that. But what they are coming to you talking about is, my husband has not been able to keep his hands off me. What they are coming to you talk about is that my husband had a baby with somebody else. Or, on the other side, my wife can't keep her hands off of me.
Last night when we was together and your wife was at home, remember what you said to me?
And we ain't talking about our church right now. We just talking about church writ large.
We're going to put that out.
We're going to put that out there. We're talking about
it does happen because I know firsthand. I can run it down. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Listen, my own family know. Preachers don't want it with me. I got all the room for the smoke. I was a Negro that was going to go to seminary just so I can curse you out with the word. Don't come at me with that, because until we can, let's talk about it. You could ask now. Somebody I will name. You could ask my pastor back in Brooklyn. I will turn into my Aunt Cherry Wiley in a hot minute and get up and say, but pastor, hold up. I remember being in Bible study and we were talking about the story of Tamar and David, and we reading through the verse, and I was like, so Tamar is the one who she was violated in the Bible. In the whole verse and in the whole Bible study, we talking about the men in the story. And I said, hold up, stop. What about Tamar? Are y'all missing the main point here? And that's the kind of energy that I bring. And so that's what I'm with. And if I cannot have that open conversation, people are questioning my holiness and my theological perspective and my, whatever, because I'm questioning how you have something to say about everybody else, but people are actually hurt. You are encouraging people to stay in marriages that are killing them. You're encouraging people to rush into marriage so that they can live without sin. I can't.
Let me tell you something. From personal experience, that's why I ain't married no more. Right? So
Talk about it.
When I was married, I went to therapy. I went to a therapist that went to the church that I attended. and talked about all the things that were going on in my marriage. So at the time, my husband at the time. So, side note, I ain't married no more. I'm fully single. For anyone that's listening and has someone that's eligible, a nice chocolate man that's
You ain't paid for no
I,
ad on
li-
this show.
I like that commercial.
back to the issue. Um, so I was talking, to a therapist, talking to her about everything that was going on in my marriage, talking about my husband at the time. He was alcoholic. Um, I was carrying the load of the marriage, right? Um, trying to talk to him to go to about going to marriage counseling again. So we went to premarital counseling, but it was like pulling teeth. Um, trying to get him to see that he had an issue, but now that I look back at it, he's alcoholic. So I was really wasting my time, right? So she was just like, we're just going to pray about it. We're going to pray about it, and we're going to pray about your anger issues. Ma'am, I'm sitting here telling you that my husband is a damn drunk, right? So all of that led to him putting his hands on me. And after that, I was like, I'm out, right? It was hard because at the time we were raising, I still call her my daughter, his daughter, and she lived with us, and she ended up having to leave. But there was no way in hell I was going to continue to stay in that marriage after he put his hands on me. I don't care how sorry he was. I don't care how drunk he was. I don't care how much of a accident he didn't mean to do it. And to top it off, he put his hands on me while I was holding my 3-month-old newborn. And I almost was in Gwinnett County Jail that night because I blacked out. Um, put her in the crib, went to the kitchen and got the biggest knife that I could find, and I was at his throat. And then she started crying, and it kind of like snapped me out of it. I was almost under the jail because it would have been murder was a case that, you know what I mean? Like he was about to be a goner. Um, but yeah, all I can say, let's pray about it. We're gonna pray away your anger. We're gonna, ma'am. I'm like, I was just sitting there looking at her like, I think I went a good 3 times. I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is not helpful. There are no viable solutions. She's not providing me or helping me with any viable solutions. I was like, I can't. So yeah, it was a lot at the time, but that pray everything away, like without action for me, you can pray. You can pray about issues, you can pray about problems, things in the world, but I need you to be able to provide me with some type of solution that you're working towards or something helpful other than just prayer, right? Um, that doesn't work for me in any situation. I don't care who it is.
That's actually violence, right? So for someone to say that I'm going through something that
Right.
either is or could potentially cause me harm, and they tell me to just pray, that's violent. In the church, if something, thank God nothing did happen in that situation where you could have, but if you were ended up in jail, they would be implicated,
Yep.
from a
Yep.
spiritual standpoint, like, because there was something that she could have done to intervene. Now, she couldn't control what you do, but she could have,
Right.
led you to some resources.
Yeah. I didn't get any of that.
Yeah, that burns me up every time I think about it. Every time you, like, I'm not you, but I relive it.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
burns me the hell up. And yet, acknowledging your pain, acknowledging the pain that we've talked about, acknowledging what we're confronted with, I still yearn for a faith community. Like, I
Yeah.
wish I had what Kelly had. It's not perfect what she has, but she has a pastor who she trusts, who's a Black woman who follows Black liberation, liberation theology, has womenist views on things. Her church is mixed, and I don't mind going to a mixed church, but I would love, a Black feminist preacher that is open and inclusive. Sign me up. I would be there. Now, I could join the Zoom, but that's not what I need. Like, yes, the word is important, but I yearned for some kind of like-minded faith community. And some of that I felt like we were creating, even though it wasn't centered towards faith, but towards my spiritual well-being and health, was our
Yes.
Pittsburgh Black Feminist Reading Group. Served as space for that. Even when we had that conversation about Cole's work, the Black Liturgy's work, and
This here flesh.
This Here Flesh.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, just having that space, it's not the exact same thing, but it did feel, to a certain extent, a void that I felt with having a faith community. People who are spiritually in tuned. I don't need everybody to believe exactly what I believe, and we see the eye to eye on everything. But like the empathy and just feeling covered and
feeling safe, right?
Feeling safe and exploring what God means, even if we're not calling it that. Like that was really powerful, you know, and even reading clubs, and like this is a whole nother topic we're getting to, but like I was looking at something where people have started to falsely believe that they can learn on their own forever, right? That like as long as they have access to information, that they don't need community. And it's why we're in the state we're in now, because people will say, "Well, I did my own research," and what prepared you to do that? And who are your peer reviewers, right? Like who are the people who are holding you accountable and checking you and saying, "Wait, I don't know about that source." And I think I need that from a spiritual perspective, but we also need that in a practical way. That like a lot of our issues politically, spiritually, is because people are learning in silos, or they're like clinging on to when they learned when they were 14 or when they were kids and their family, and they refuse to question it because that cognitive dissonance is killing them. So yeah, sorry, I went on a rant.
I mean, it just all feels very violent, right? The telling women to stay feels violent. Telling LGBTQ folks that they can't stay is violent. Even how the Bible is portrayed is, it's violent. And we don't want to talk about, there's some shady stuff in that book. And I'm like, what was the moral of this story I was supposed to get? And so as a woman, it's one of those things where I know that faith is faith because I don't have evidence of it. But sometimes I'm like, am I an idiot? Even the stories I feel are made up, I'm still reading this book with some curiosity, right? And I'm just like, it is truly perplexing, right? And I guess the God essence, right? That I am not supposed to fully comprehend it all. But when I see these institutions commit violence and nobody thinks that it's wrong, or so few people feel comfortable saying out loud that this is wrong, I mean, I might as well just be reading a book or scrolling TikTok, because it's no less harmful than the alternative. And so, we have these great pockets of community that we are building, but so many people don't have access, right? Like, I love my church. They're doing great things. We punch well above our weight in terms of service to community and all of that. But half the people in Houston don't know we're here, right? Like all the LGBTQ folks in Houston who are looking for a Christian faith community that is welcome, we're here, but those folks aren't in our walls, right? So I think that so many people are walking around with hurt from their experience with church, that they're not really seeking out a community because they don't even believe it exists. And so people are living life alone who don't have to live life alone, because the church has shown to be itself to be a harmful place and not a place of refuge for everyone. So that just feels very heavy. And then I feel hypersensitive, quite frankly, having Meg and Leatra on, because I'm just like, I don't like sitting on calls hearing white people unpack whiteness and anti-blackness. And so then I just feel so much empathy, and also like, how do I protect my people, right? Like, I don't want the people that I love to have to experience what I experience from a different perspective, and then to have to experience that as a woman and as a Black queer woman, like, my God, today. So also just sending a lot of energy, and grateful that y'all are holding down the tech on this conversation.
Big plus one to that, and I would like even to make space if there's anything that you'd like to add or not add. Feel, no pressure. But speaking about being Black queer women and where we're from, we're all in the Rust Belt. So it ain't like we in New York where it's like, you know what I mean?
I'm going to be honest. Growing up, I never really had close family ties to the church. My parents always identified as having a home church, but didn't go there but a couple times a year, if that. And we did, like, that wasn't a practice that we really had instilled as their children. So that was just not really my experience. And in a lot of ways, I'm appreciative of that because I feel like it has kept my mind open. And, I grew up being interested and curious about other, religions, like world religions, and, trying to see if there were pieces and elements that like resonated with me. And, kind of like going into the whole queer identity and understanding that element of me and who I am. This is Leatra, by the way. I guess I should have said that since if people don't really know my voice. But yeah, just I feel like that also maybe helped me to be a little bit more liberated and kind of understanding what that meant to me and who I am, and that aspect of myself. And I will say it's not a thing that has really occurred to me. Like I felt just compelled to go to a church or compelled to seek out a church home as an adult. Probably because of that fear of being welcomed, or that fear of what that might look like, or what that might feel like, or, just kind of knowing that there may be some attitudes, because it's hard enough to navigate that within one's own family and within one's own, first layer of networks that you are familiar with, to open yourself up to those opinions and perceptions from, additional layers or further layers out. I just didn't know if I wanted that. So I don't know if Meg has any like differing perspective or anything you want to kind of offer up.
I agree. I think one of the biggest reasons that I had such a hard time coming out is because when I was a kid, I grew up in the church, and I was told that if you do certain things, you are going straight to hell. And so knowing that I had people in my family who believe those things, I was like, well, maybe I don't really want them to know that this is how I'm feeling as far as like my sexuality is concerned, because I'll be disowned or whatever. Eventually they came around, and, everything is cool now, but it was a whole thing. Like I would lie to cover stuff up. Just, it was a whole thing. So this whole episode, I feel like, resonates with me, and it will also resonate with quite a few different people who kind of grew up in that same way. So I feel like
you should have seen the full body reaction we had when y'all were first talking about Pray the Gay Away, because we didn't know that's where y'all were going straight out the gate.
No, I appreciate y'all sharing, and I appreciate Kelly making space for it, because I think it's important. But I also think it's important that Black straight women, continue to speak out for folks who are not Black straight women, because a lot of times, we have also people who are double, triple, and quadruple oppressed, been in a position as oppressors, particularly in the church. I feel like the pastors bring it up a lot, but I feel like just like in a lot of other societies, that women are often used to kind of like further oppress in very like nefarious ways. And I just think it's important that we stand on business on that, you know what I mean, with the church, and be like, yeah, no, the lines, we not crossing that line on behalf of what y'all calling holy. And so, no, I appreciate this conversation and being open to sharing your perspectives. And I love that y'all are coming at it from two different angles. But I got to be honest with you, Leatra, you and I being in settings, particularly in our PhD program, which was new for me, most of my graduate school life has been around people who were not people of faith. So when we were in our PhD program, when we were in a cohort with so many like very religious people, I often wondered, not to say that you didn't have religion or anything like that. But I often wonder, you also came out to us in that space, right? And how the way religion was such a huge part of our conversations, how how it impacted you, if at all. And sometimes I used to wonder, I'm like, okay, Leatra, like, is young and was vulnerable enough to share this with us. And I know people love her and, love on her, but how does this space and the way we show up impact how she feels? Has she ever felt uncomfortable and things like that? So just want to put that out there if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. And you see me here smiling because I think in some ways, I think about, one of our cohort mates who as a young white man, and how just enthralled he was with the religious element of, what our group ended up being, our sisterhood that we formed. We called the Heavenly Seven, and it was 7 Black women in a cohort of 14. Started out 14 and ended up being 13, and all 7 of us, we kind of came together, made sure each other finished, and we really formed this deep sisterhood and bond very early on. And we had this young white man who was kind of he was like the 8, like the plus one, right? And he was around a lot of that, and he loved it. He was so curious about it. And so I think in some ways it wasn't like it wasn't that same, that same kind of viewpoint about it, but it was like, okay, I'm in this. Like, this is what we're doing. We're gonna hold hands. We're gonna pray before this, because I was honoring that space in the same way I felt that you all were honoring, space for me and sharing parts of my identity, and giving me that space to feel comfortable and just share what my truth was in there. I wanted y'all to have space to share your truth as well. And it was nice to be a part of it. And I think it was kind of dipping the toe a little bit into that religiosity that I hadn't had embedded in my kind of everyday. What was the other thing I was going to say? Dang, it was good too, y'all.
It'll come back.
It might come back.
It will come back. But I wanted to say, it's funny that me projecting myself on you, because I was uncomfortable sometimes, and I was a church girl. But we'd be like, well, let's pray before the thing, and folks like, sometimes I'd be like, well, wait a minute, is that?
I find I'm the same way.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know if that's everybody's jam. Like, right. I don't know how I feel about this. So I would be like looking around, like, is this okay? Like, do people feel okay about this? And I remember one time we did, I think it was before our comps or something, and it was like we were all there, and the young man you were talking about, me and him were holding hands, and we were trying so hard not to laugh because it got real, like people were, like shouting almost. I want to say somebody might even spoke tongues. I don't know.
They did.
Y'all got that.
They did for sure.
Oh Lord!
Even
me, I was holding hands, but I had to open up an eye and not look around and be like, okay, all right.
What?
But that person looked at me, and I looked at them, and I said, "My God, today."
Absolutely not.
I said, we doing a lot in here. I was like, granted, I do want a little prayer before it comes, but we done. I almost turned into Aunt Josie, Denele. She'd be like, it don't take all of that.
Listen. I have always stood on. I've always been shielded from situations like that, because I will bust out laughing. I will, just like we went on a cruise, and Mommy Ross, Kendra's mom, she's notoriously known for praying long. Mommy Ross, keep it short and sweet. So we was praying before dinner. We holding hands praying. I opened my eyes. She was praying. I was staring at her like. And then my brother opened his eyes. Somebody else opened their eyes, and they was looking at me. I was like, when she was done, she looked straight at me. I said, wrap it up. It don't take all that. All we doing is eating. I be looking at her like, don't be long-winded now.
They be like, okay, Elder Ross, we don't need to pray for the entire world in this particular moment.
Wrap it up.
Oh, love it so much. Oh my gosh.
It don't take all that.
Question, Denele, one of the clips we shared in a previous episode was a woman Baptist preacher, I'm sure you saw it at the time, who was basically saying like the church has lost a generation. I'm curious what you think about the future of church, right? So your child is with the artsy people all day, right? At some point, she's gonna be at the same crossroads in her faith. Are we gonna lose another generation?
Yes. I that's an interesting question. So I can only speak from conversations that I've had with Janae, right? So Janae loves God. She believes in God. She does not want to go to church. When I ask her, does she want to go to church? Does she want to go to teen church? Sometimes, yes, it depends. If her friends are going, she's at that age, right? So if her friends are going, maybe. But it's not like I don't force church on Janae like my parents forced it on me. I'm letting her forge her own way. She's an ally, right? A lot of her friends and associates are queer, and not a thing wrong with that, right? She's always accepted them for who they are. Everybody. She accepts everybody for who they are. She doesn't care. She doesn't care about your sexuality. She don't care about your race, your ethnicity. She doesn't care, right? She accepts you for who you are. She loves God and she likes to serve, right? But she doesn't necessarily have to serve in church. She can serve God outside of church, right? She serves God in everything everything that she does, because she's a believer and she has the heart of Christ. God is definitely all within her. She's so sweet. She's a I'm gonna just say this. She is the opposite of what I was when I was her age, and I am so grateful that I have opportunity to be her mom. Because, child, if I had a Denele, it would be knucking and bucking all up in this mug, right? But I think that, so I don't know. To answer your question, I don't know, because I do see a lot of the younger generation in church, but I also see a lot of the younger generation that are not, but still serves and still, you know, are open and loves everybody as they are. So I don't know. That's a good question.
What do you think, Kim?
I was trying to find some of my notes from Dr. Kia Conaway, because I believe the church as we know it or we understand it is not going to last, but that's okay. Just like we're forging our way for a new world, we're forging our way for a new church, and the church don't need us, right? Like so the church, the church is going to be generative and recreates the church that it needs to be, right? It's not going to look like.
Wait, say that again. You said the church is going to be generative.
Is the church what church is generative and be regenerative, and it's going to form itself into what it needs to be for such a time as this. It's not going to look like what we think it's going to look like, right? Like just like what did we say, Kelly? We had church down there at the arena with Beyonce and them,
and did
Listen.
to the point where we went out and we took our good hard money and went out and bought more tickets for the next day and took our black behinds back to the Beyonce concert the next day. I can't even get Kelly to buy some shoes that cost more than $650, but I got her to spend $500 more on a ticket to go see Beyonce.
I know that's right.
If that ain't church, I don't know what is.
She had the Holy Ghost.
I mean, the church is looking different, and people gonna call it heretic. People gonna call it sinful. People gonna call it all the things. That's just one instance, but I witness other moments where people come together, and I can feel it. You know what I mean? I can feel chains dropping. I can feel people's hearts opening. I can feel it. That's church, and I know what it feels like to get the Holy Ghost. And a lot of times, it's an emotional response to trauma and stuff. It's not always what it is.
Right.
But a lot of times when I felt it, like I remember I used to go see Leatra Tate shows. You know, she's singing R&B, and sometimes she would get so full, she would be like shouting. Fantasia does the same thing. When the spirit is in you, it ain't tied to no building. So to answer your question, the church will remain, but it will not remain as it is today, and it shouldn't. We have to, Dr. Conaway said? We have to divorce ourselves from, the things of church, because either we're going to be a space where we worship relics, or we're going to build disciples. I'm sorry, Denele, you want to say something?
I forget what I was going to say. Oh, I went to go see Kamasi Washington.
That I cried the whole
I
show.
was crying so bad at his concert. Just the instrumentation and just the delivery. I was just standing there. I was in awe. Like tears were just. I have never. I think that might have been one of the first times that I've like literally just been standing there like looking, just tears just flowing. It was amazing.
+1. I saw Kamasi Washington at the Blue Note in that small intimate space, and I said I just had church. And when I was in the Blue Note last week for Glasper, I remember, like, I've been in the Blue Note a million times. I used to perform there, but something told me to look through my old pictures. I was in the space, so I went to the map and I was looking at pictures there, and the picture came up of the day I went to Kamasi Washington, and I got full thinking about it. And that's, and I don't have that experience often, but when I do, I can't shake it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to touch on something that Kelly spoke about when you were talking about reading the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And since I was a little girl, I always looked at the Bible as a soap opera, right? Because there's so much shit that happens in the Bible, right?
Yes.
And since I've been a child, I've always been inquisitive, right? I always have asked a lot of questions, and I still do. If I don't have the answer or I want to know the answer, I'm gonna ask the question. People be like, "You ask so many questions," and I want to know, right? So, when I went to college, I felt like the process of like questioning and re-examining my religious practices and beliefs and identity. That's where it all like started, right? Because I was out of my parents' house, I could do what I wanted to do. It wasn't forced. Nobody was forcing me to go to church. Um, but I remember one particular instance when I was smaller. So my dad was a deacon and an elder.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we used to have these, remember those big Bibles, the big old white family Bibles you used to have in your house?
Yes.
So we used to have Bible study. And I hated it. I'd be like, why we gotta have Bible study? Like, this is stupid. We already go to church and be there forever. Why we gotta have Bible study throughout the week? I don't have to, like, what is this for? So I used to be sitting there like, just looking. But then I used to be asking all these questions, right? You a deacon and an elder, you should be able to answer my questions. So I remember asking him, like we were talking about Adam and Eve, right? And I was like, now the Bible's talking about Adam and Eve. Now was there people there in the world before Adam and Eve? And they talk about their sons, Cain and Abel, but Cain and Abel's two men. How did they reproduce the earth? Like I was asking all these questions, and he was just looking at me like I'm looking at him like I'm ready for an answer, sir. And he was like, "Well, there were other people." I said, "But where is it in the Bible? Y'all following the Bible like it's the end all be all. I need details. I need, you know what I mean?" And he used to be like,
Yeah.
"You are doing the most." And I'm like, "I need to know. Y'all following this Bible like
Yeah.
this is the law." And you know what I mean? So I'm like, "Yeah, no."
Hmm.
So and even now, I don't believe. I find myself arguing. So I was arguing with Jerry and
Mm-hmm.
Janaea in the car on the way taking them to school because I told them I don't believe everything in the Bible. I said the Bible is man made. People wrote them stories, and it's just like me telling you a secret, and then you telling the next person, and it go down to the 10th person. It don't have nothing to. It don't have nothing to do with what I originally told you. And they was like, "Well, that's God's word." I said, "You know God personally? Have you met God? Have you shaken hands?" We was going back and forth, back and forth, and so they were just sitting there looking at me like I said, "Giving you something to think about, ain't I?" And so it's just like I'm still kind of like working out the ebbs and flows of my beliefs. I wouldn't even say religious beliefs, right? Because I don't even know if I believe in religion anymore. Um,
Mm.
and today when I was thinking about this conversation, I was thinking about church hurt, right? I was like, I don't think I have been directly hurt by the church, but I think a lot of people that I love and care for have been, and that in turn bothers me, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm a very loyal person. So if you mess with my friends or my family, we gonna have some problems. Um, so I was like, I think that because of their hurt, I'm an empath, right? So I feel all of that, and I'm like, no, like I ain't messing with you no more. I ain't messing with you. I ain't coming back to see you at this church. I ain't going to this church because remember they did this 10 years ago, Kendra, and Kendra be like,
That's the other part. Denele will hold a grudge.
I don't play. Listen, do something to one of my friends or my family. Oh no, I'm not letting it go.
You
I
be
don't mess with them.
you be done forgot, and she's still talking about some stuff from 1985.
Show is.
Yes to the loyalty. Yes to the loyalty. I appreciate the naming, right? Because it can be empathetic, right? It's not to say everyone has had a bad experience at church,
Right.
but I think when you care about humanity at such deep levels and about the people that you love so deeply, yeah, to stand by and watch them be hurt seems impossible.
Yeah.
Hmm. If it regenerates, like Kendra says, what do you hope the church could be for young people like Janae and Jerry who have this
Great
innocence?
question.
I would want it to be like our Pittsburgh Black Feminist Reading Group, right?
Mm.
That was my
So,
answer.
so a safe space where everyone doesn't have to believe the same thing, but are able to express themselves and love on each other regardless of their beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a place that doesn't have to physically be the church. It could be somebody's
Mm-hmm.
house. You could be in the backyard, right? Yeah, somewhere safe, loving, a loving environment, um, with people who are open um, to giving and receiving.
Can I ask our off-air guest to answer that question? If they care that a church exists, what would they want it to look like?
So for me, I feel like I do, and this is probably interesting to say, and this is just really coming off the top of the head because I haven't thought about this before. But I feel like I do care that the church exists and carries on because I feel like I've been witness to people caring deeply for it and that really being like it's always made sense to me and the way I've understood it because there is this like toxic element to it as well, but the way I've understood it is there is a deep need for people to believe in something in order to get
Mm-hmm.
through what they're navigating now, the challenges of life and humanity and all, and that has existed historically for throughout all time. There is a need for people to believe in something beyond themselves, beyond what they can see, what they can touch, what they can feel. And like Kendra was saying, it's not you can't build that connection in that same connection in a Zoom. You can't build that or replicate that same connection that you can build in community. So I do believe that there is a need for the church to exist in some form, but I feel like that will inherently change. I have no idea what that looks like, but I did remember what I said before, and I think this kind of ties into it, or what I was thinking before that I'd lost. um but what someone else thinks about me is not any of my business. And so I think that is an element that I would like to see in that regeneration of the church is, where people can come together and they can, just like you said, Denele, they can, form and connect and maybe even, share religion around common themes, but it doesn't have to divide. It doesn't have to be divisive. Like there's no need for that in anything that exists. And I think that's also been a big part of why I've never really been inclined to seek that out because there's also an element of like just, and I heard this in what you were saying about Janaea is just being a good human. You know, I've always thought that too. Like God should be pleased with someone being a good human.
Yes.
You know, like why is that not enough? Why do I have to wake up every Sunday or wake up, you know, certain days of the week and go to this place in order to prove that I believe or in order to prove that I'm worthy of whatever good things are coming next after this life? So there's lots of stuff wrapped up in that. That's my long-winded way of saying, you know, what I feel like that next generation or iteration of the church can or should be.
Thank you.
I could not have said it better myself.
And that's just a hearty cosign from Meg.
Thank you. Thank you.
Leatra, I told Janaea that almost every day, that what people think of you. I was like, that don't got nothing to do with you. And let them think what they think over there.
And there's a lot of privilege in that, right? And I feel like that, especially when we're talking about this in the context of folks who are here and in the church. But there's a lot of privilege in really adopting that mentality because there's, you know, a lot of folks who can't kind of operate in that space safely and navigate their everyday lives. But I really believe that. And I think that's why it's not necessarily on the individual to adopt that mindset, but it's on the systems and the communities to and the cultures to shift to adopt that mindset. Just let people love who they love, be who they are.
Right.
Until it hits that place that y'all started when we're talking about oppression or when you are speaking and believing things that are in ways that are oppressive. That's not okay. That is what needs to be worked on, not me, who I love.
Absolutely.
And hopefully pastors will actually spend their time preaching about the things that are causing harm in our communities, right? That's one thing I appreciate about Reverend Vanessa. If it's happening in the world on the global stage, like in the neighborhoods, but it's impacting people, that's what she's preaching about, right? She is preaching about what is happening in Gaza. She's preaching about school shootings. She's preaching about the impact of these constant disasters on the finances and the psyche of people and community. And then when she's not doing that, she is also helping me to deconstruct, right? So Sunday, I'm a good bedside Baptist right now, so I'll be listening to church online, and she was talking about the story of Job and how everyone was always focused on Job and like his wife was cursing him. And she also offered an alternative interpretation because she said, if you think about the historical moment, him dying meant her dying because she didn't have a covering. Right? She didn't have another male in the family who was going to take her in. And it was not going to be okay. She was not going to be good by Job dying. And I feel like every time there is an unnamed or silenced woman in the text, she offers something for us to consider because their voice is not present. And so I think if we had more theological spaces that talked about the true, ills of the world and gave voice to people who don't have a voice, we would be in a much better place.
Well, amen to all of that.
I don't know if there's an easy answer to this, but Kelly, I'm curious if you had, for listeners out there who may be seeking out or wanting to seek out a church in their communities that kind of fits what you were able to find and what was kind of on your criteria list of the ways that you wanted to engage. How do you recommend folks find a church home where they can feel comfortable?
Yeah, so we'll definitely, we'll share some links in the chat, but there are several what they call mainline denominations. So United Church of Christ is one, United Methodist Church, right? So they're more conservative. Members branched off last year, but it was over being an inclusive denomination. And so United Methodist Church right now could use members, right? Because they've lost, air quotes lost, because they didn't really lose. They won for the people. But people walked away. And so I think that they would be excited to have more queer folks who know that they are a welcome and sanctuary space for them to worship and explore and serve in community. And there are a couple other denominations that we can share. The Our Bible app is a Bible app that is an inclusive Christian community, but they also have folks who are exploring mysticism and folks who are exploring traditional African religion and folks who are Buddhist. So it's fascinating space of folks who mostly come out of the Christian tradition. And so I've just tried to make sure I surround myself with as many inclusive spaces where I can learn and grow. And we're happy to share those out with folks.
And here, I can also share some links, but also encourage people that if the space that they're looking for does not exist, that they can create it, and it doesn't have to be fancy and formal. It could be Friday dinners. And if you don't have the ability to see people in person, it could be Zoom calls until you can. But if you read a lot of bell hooks and other Black feminist thinkers, that community, particularly we talked earlier about in another episode, I think about sister circles. And if you start there, and if you already have a sister circle, and then you just set some intention around it to say, we're not going to just get on here and gossip and talk about what happened on Love Island or whatever, which there's a place for that. But, we want to read a text together. It might be a poem. Maybe we'll go see something together. Maybe we'll go look for Kamasi Washington in the next city. That can also be a space that can help, lead you to the community that you need. And that if you need a more formal faith community like the church, is there for you, or like a Buddhist temple, or like a organized religious space, that's fine. But you can also create that community for yourself.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, I want to shout out our producer Leatra for doing a call to discipleship on the podcast. That's almost as good as Tanika giving us a benediction in the podcast when she was on. Anything you want to leave us with, Denele, after you joined us? You brought a lot of really important insights and shared a lot and was vulnerable. So we appreciate you being here. But any takeaways, anything that came out of this conversation that you are taking away from this conversation you want to share?
Mind your business and quit worrying about who people busting the slob with.
First of all, I need her to come out of 1990. Nobody says busting the slob anymore. Stop it.
Your daughter is going to be mortified that you
said that. Because Denele is always using slang from 25, 30 years ago. Busting a slob, Negro?
Yeah. Don't worry about it. How about it's none of your damn business?
Busting a slob. That just sounds gross. Like when we said it was so a normal part of our conversation, but now that just sounds gross.
You showing your age, girl. You showing
y'all
your
knew
age.
What I meant, didn't you?
I did. And did.
That's
Before we leave, can I just say I'm excited? Has anybody heard the song that Glorilla did with Kirk Franklin or with Kira Shear yet? I'm excited. Yo, I'm a fan of Glorilla, and I don't understand why, but I'm a huge fan. And now I have to hear this Glorilla Kirk Franklin song.
Why? What is the correlation between Glorilla and busting a slob?
No, I just wanted to. That was my takeaway. That I really want to see her. I want to hear her song.
That was her takeaway.
Listen, basically, what Leatra said earlier about what people think of me is none of my business, and letting people show up as the fullness of who they are, is really where I'm at. And so Glorilla got songs talking about her moose knuckle or whatever it's called, and she got a song with Kira Shear. She got a song with Kirk Franklin. Glorilla, hallelujah.
That's Kendra's girl.
I love Glorilla.
And since she be at the Steeler games all the time, I'm gonna need her to come and do a concert.
She be in Pittsburgh all the time because she's a Steelers fan.
I love it so much.
Anyway, yeah.
My takeaway is if you can't find it, you can build it.
Absolutely.
And my other takeaway is like, listen, my other takeaway is just like James Baldwin said, and I use this quote all the time. James Baldwin says he critiques the United States of America because he loves it. He loves his country. That's why he critiques it. He wouldn't critique it if he didn't love it. The church has given me so much. But I won't participate in the tomfoolery and the foolishness. But I want it to be what it can be. And if not even we, because I feel like I'm old. If this generation creates the church that we really need, I'm in. Sign me up.
Sign me up for the Christian Jubilee. Write my name on the road. I've been shamed since Lord has lifted me. I wanna be ready when Jesus comes.
And on that note, we will. This woman's work is accepting all sponsorships. This is the offering.
Aid to the man.
Anyone out there interested in sponsoring this Woman's Work podcast, please contact our producer. Am I doing this right?
Yes, you are.
Yes,
you're doing a great job.
Leatra Tate.
You can inbox us on our IG.
Yes.
You could go to the website. There's a link that says donate.
Please contact the producer at thiswoman'sworkpodcast@gmail.com. Don't be shy.
You know what Denele sound like? You know how the old lady, that's the secretary of the church or the church clerk, she be reading on the programs and stuff at the funeral, and they be all day, and they be.
You see my headset? I'm the secretary.
They be like this. They be like written on this day, the 18th of August, 2023. The members and leaders in the pastoral committee of the First Bedside Baptist Church offers their condolences. And then they read the little scripture and they be like, heaven has no sorrow. Earth has no sorrow that heaven cannot bear. Written in loving Pastor Cleotha Robinson, Pastor elect,
and First Lady, and the First Lady.
You got your First Lady. Oh yeah, and First Lady Leonora Johnson. Like that's how you was reading that. But we appreciate you.
But real talk,
you got church clerk in your future.
They are accepting sponsorships, so please contact them at thiswoman'sworkpodcast@gmail.com.
And this is like back in the day when you grew up in a church and your parents don't want to leave, and you be like, "Can we go eat now? It's time. It's after 1 o'clock.
We're going to Old Country Buffet."
Oh, we used to tear up some Old Country Buffet. Bye.
Hilarious.